Going, everybody? This is Ask Me Anything About Politics. So, if you've got any questions about politics, just let me know in the chat, and I will do my best to give you a great answer. So, if you got questions about politics, just put them in the chat, and I'll do my best to give you a great answer. I don't claim to know everything. I just know lots of things, especially about what is currently going on in American politics. So I can give you the benefit of my expertise, and you don't got to worry about getting roasted or judged or debated for your question whatsoever. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat or who you voted for. I don't care if you currently have a MAGA poster in your yard, or if you got one of those. In this house, we believe in the rights of people to do whatever. One of them signs. I'm cool with everybody. Just ask me your questions and I will do my best to give you a great answer. I don't believe in, debating people or roasting them or owning them or yelling at people or calling them stupid. I'm just here to answer all of your good faith questions about politics with good faith answers of my own. And I think that we need more places where people can ask questions because politics is really intimidating to try to learn about. It can feel like trying to learn a new language sometimes. And if you live in certain areas, then maybe you don't feel comfortable asking questions to people that because they'll think that you're, further to the left than them or further to the right than them. And so, let's see here. Prod says you're a good listen on the Metro. Oh, sweet. Yeah. What city are you in that you call it the Metro? So yeah, welcome to the party, everybody. I'm just here to answer all of your good faith questions about politics. So, if you want to know what the filibuster is, or reconciliation, or if you want to ask a more specific question about our current moment in politics right now, Miriam says, "Hey there, new follower here. Welcome, Miriam. Thanks for being part of the live stream." And says, "Hi. Why did AOC not vote against funding the Iron Dome?" So no. I'm not 100% sure how accurate that story is because there's a lot of misinformation around AOC specifically, and a lot of bad faith actors trying to separate her from the pro-Palestinian anti-Netanyahu coalition that exists on the left. Now, that being said, I do think that there is a good faith argument for continuing to fund the Iron Dome as it is a defensive weapons system. So, voting against the Iron Dome is basically like saying, if Iran or Hamas decides to fire some rockets into Israel, then we're just going to let a bunch of Israeli citizens die. And, I think that that's a perfectly fine vote to make. Where money is fungible and we do not want to be sending any offensive weapons to Israel, you could probably potentially have some other issues, but yeah, I don't really see a problem with that vote necessarily, especially from somebody who has been one of the strongest critics of Netanyahu in our government. Like, we need to be supporting those politicians as best we can. All right, scrolling. Flamingo, happy Monday to you. Bayou Max says, are the gas prices down from since 6 months ago? I don't know. They're up where I am. Mello says, thoughts on the new Arkansas whites only community. Should we be concerned? So Mello, I don't think we should be concerned. I mean, about those specifically, but like the trends that created it are things that 100% we should be concerned about, and we should be doing the work to fight against the forces that created a bunch of people that felt like that was something that they needed. All right, Chillin' Jazz says, do you think crypto will continue to rise over the next 4 years? I got no idea if it's going up or down. I just know that there's no real use case for crypto except for crime, and also it is gobbling up a ton of electricity. It's like terrible. So I wouldn't use it if I were you. Lauren, good to see you again. Danimal Prime says, do you think Fed Chair Jerome will be replaced in a year? How do you think that will impact interest rates? So the concern with when Jerome Powell's tenure is up and if he gets replaced, when his term is up, he will 100% get replaced by somebody that the Trump administration will just do whatever Trump tells him to do, which is going to be very reckless. To raise interest rates in a time of inflation is just going to increase inflation. It's going to further crater the value of the dollar. It's just going to be bad. There's going to be like more chaos, and you know, uh, the cost of living crisis is going to continue to, what do you call it, to escalate. So yeah, that's concerning. We should all be worried about that. Prod says, I'm a tutor in DC. Big fan of the trains down here. I'm a big fan of the trains everywhere. No says, does Iron Dome really need any more funding? They don't have enough. I mean, I think an argument could be made that we've given Israel enough money for that, but I haven't seen those numbers. I don't know specifically if the Iron Dome needs, for example, like rockets that only we make or some shit like that. Let's see here. Prod says, is Trump's new EU deal as good as it claims to be? No. I mean, without having dug into the numbers on, oh my God, we're getting so much more out of them than they are from us or whatever. It is still increasing taxation on the citizens of this country. Regardless of if it is 30% or 15%, it is going to raise prices on American citizens, and American citizens are already suffering from a cost of living crisis. We're not there. There's no benefit. Like what are we gonna do? We're gonna start making British tea here, and it's all grift. Like he exempted Bentleys from the tariffs. We're able to import cars from Europe cheaper, but if you want to build them here, there's still an aluminum tariff. Yeah. I just find so much of the reporting about these tariffs to be so desperately searching for silver linings, where they're like, oh, we didn't think this number was going to be as big it is, but look how big this number is, everybody. And it's like, well, maybe we should look at like the potential knock-on effects of this. Like we're looking at a very dark holiday season where people are not going to be able to afford things, and we're going to have a lot less supply available to buy those things. Chillin' Jazz says, what investment should I make to hedge inflation? That is not advice that I am qualified to give, Chillin' Jazz. There are people who do this professionally who are like, they give entire like pages full of disclaimers on, everything that I say should only be taken as entertainment, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I got no idea, buddy. There's no thing that I would recommend you do that I don't think is like, I don't know, things that everybody knows already, just like play it conservative. Let's see here. Squidball says, more corrupt, Obama or Trump? There's no human being is more corrupt than Trump. He is like the most corrupt human being that has ever existed. Coach S Hate Club says, Trump or Kamala? What a weird question now that the election is over. Do you want to rephrase that as though you are not just a bot that was left on from November? Right, Dan Blackford said, and Aston Martin's a real bolstering move for the middle class. Yeah, we're cheaper Aston Martins, everybody. That's really going to help the steel workers. Donald Trump 420 says, I was invited to Epstein Island but turned him down. If Maxwell helps me, I'll pardon her. Believe me. 420 Donald Trump, I still have no fucking idea what your deal is, man. Pierre 4 on Depop says, no, I haven't dug into it. Sounds real qualified. Listen, man, I'm being as honest as I can about what I know and what I don't know. Pierre 4. So, if you think that disqualifies me from giving any opinion or information on what is going on currently, you don't have to be here. There's nobody's forcing you to be here. Flamingo Mo says, there is no deal. There's an unsigned framework and it is worse for us than what it was. I buy that. All right, let's see here. Jake says, why is Trump hanging out with Epstein? He is not currently. Epstein is no longer with us. But why was he? Because they both liked young girls. That's probably, Kareem Pai says, do you think AOC has a chance to become president in 28? Yeah, why not? Let's see here. Schleep says, favorite thing Trump has done policy-wise? So first of all, let's address the premise of that question. Like, do I need to find a good silver lining in the things that Trump has done to prove that I am a completely, unbiased and bipartisan human being? It seems a little strange. To be like looking for like the silver lining of John Wayne Gacy. Like somebody's fucking stabbing you in the throat. Do I have to admit that they have nice eyes while they're doing it? So yeah, I could come on here and say that I think it's right that the Trump Treasury Department is going to cancel the penny, but yeah, I mean, there's so many more awful things that he's doing that's ruining fucking everything, It's Zach says, do you think Trump is on the list? Yeah, but just because his attorney general said that he was on the list. Prod says, I already asked that. You already did that one. Why is Kanye West says, are you socialist or communist? I'm not socialist, I'm not communist, but I'm also not a capitalist. I believe in a mixed system. I think we need a little bit more socialism and communism in this country, the way that they have a little bit more in, Norway and Canada and Sweden and Finland and the UK and shit like that. Because we have a little bit too much capitalism here, in my opinion. Claire Jones says, thoughts on the Democrats taking on trans issues. So I haven't heard. The only thing that I've heard regarding Democrats and trans issues is there's a progressive wing that is strongly supporting the trans community still. There's a centrist wing of the Democratic Party that is saying that maybe trans people are the reason why we lost the 2024 election. There's other people like Gavin Newsom, who's kind of like paying lip service to a more centrist argument around the trans community. But I haven't seen any Democrat who is as bad on the trans issue as the Republican Party is at large. I think I've seen individual Democrats who I'm like, well, I don't love how not full-throated of a supporter you are, but still, they're still better than the alternative. General ANCAP says, let me on. No. T-Wolf says, do you know anything about the Handala? No, I don't know what that is. Pineapple says, the trans thing is what caused me not to vote for Harris. Pineapples, I think that's weird. I think it's weird that Kamala Harris, who did not have an aggressive pro-trans agenda, is the reason why you decided not to vote for Harris. So, I also think it's really weird that you would vote for throwing a marginalized community under the bus and also to fucking ruin your own life as well. Seems weird. Bayou Max says, all Democrats voted for 12 and under puberty blockers. Do you think that hurt them? It's a medical condition, children under 12, there are medical conditions that would require them to be able to get puberty blockers. So the Democratic Party wasn't voting for every child to get puberty blockers. The Democratic Party was voting to protect the rights of children to get puberty blockers. Panda Wan says, do you believe in socialism? Do I believe in companies being employee-owned like Publix and Bob's Red Mill? Absolutely. They seem to be doing great. Pineapple says, the trans stuff is causing a lot of harm. It's the Republicans' attack on the trans community is causing a lot of harm, but trans people existing and playing sports and shit is not causing a lot of harm. Mello says, you underestimate how many people vote solely to throw another group under the bus. Yeah, but I can still be shocked when it happens, my guy. I'm being silly, Mello, right? I got love for you. Alrighty, Dan Blackbird says Kamala Harris didn't mention trans people once in her campaign. Yeah, that is fully accurate. T-Wolf says Handala is the ship seized by Israel's government on their way to provide relief to starving kids. That is fucking monstrous. Israel is, so I used to come on here all the time and fight about doesn't need to be a genocide. It can be war crimes. We all agree it's war crimes. Why y'all fighting for genocide? But Amnesty International and 2 human rights groups within Israel have now officially come out and said that it's a genocide. So it's a fucking genocide. Everybody, congratulations. We did it. Dope Boy says, why do you believe the LGBTQ community push an agenda to so many people? The LGBTQ community is not pushing any agenda. Dope Boy, the LGBTQ community just wants to live their fucking lives. The agenda they're pushing is let us live our lives the way we want to live. Stop trying to encroach on our rights to exist. If a character in a book is gay, I don't think that book needs to be banned from libraries and schools and shit like that. Seems pretty stupid to me. Why is Kanye West says, also Kamala Harris said U.S. will fully support Israel with their genocide campaign in Gaza. I do not believe that is a good faith criticism. Why is Kanye West? Because number one, there were pressures on Kamala Harris to try to mimic the policies of the Biden administration, but she gave us clues that she was going to be better on this issue than Biden. And Trump is worse on this issue than even Biden was. At least Biden was out there pretending to put pressure on Netanyahu. Trump is out there saying yeah, why don't we ethnically cleanse that whole fucking area? Lindsey Graham said, let's drop a fucking nuclear bomb on them. I think the dude's name is Mike Lee, some Republican representative. When he heard that children in Palestine were starving to death, he said, hooray. He said, good. He said, let them starve. So, yeah, Republicans are worse on this issue, So I don't give a shit what quote you have. from Kamala Harris paying lip service to the Biden administration, she would have been better on this issue by a lot. By a lot, she would have been better on this issue. Blue, like China, says that's not actually a defense of her Israel policy. I mean, just saying Trump's is worse doesn't justify it. Blue, like China, I think worse is worse and better is better. So maybe it wouldn't have been the way that I would have phrased it. Maybe there's better policies out there, but the people who are dying in Palestine now that wouldn't have died under a Harris administration wish that you were not doing this, you know? Molded Bread says Republicans are America first. U.S. needs to stop being the world police. Molded Bread, Republicans are not America first. Republicans are rich people first. They are white people first. They are Trump first. But there are millions of Americans who are going to have a worse life because of the actions of the Trump administration. But billionaires are going to do great. Racists are going to do great. You know, there are women who are dead today because of people voting for Republican politicians and Donald Trump. So yeah, they're worse off. They're Americans, weren't they? You know, why is Kanye West says, bro, you're talking politics. You didn't even hear what Kamala said in her debates. No, I heard it. Why is Kanye West? But I also am looking at what Trump is currently doing, and it's worse. It's worse than what Biden did. And Kamala Harris was going to be better on this issue than Biden was. So ergo, she would have been a lot better than Trump on this issue. You know, I don't understand why we're splitting hairs here when there are children dying in Palestine who would not have been dying if Kamala Harris was president right now. Michael says, do you think Sharia law should be practiced in the U.S.? No, I don't believe in any sort of religious extremism being the law of the land. I believe in the separation of church and state. Why is Kanye West says LMAO a lot better? Yeah, I mean, there's people who are dead right now who would not have been dead. But, you are so sure. Why is Kanye West that I'm wrong about this? You know? Okay, what else you feel better about being wrong? Cool, man. What are you doing right now? What are you doing to stop the Trump administration? They are currently supporting this genocide that's happening in Palestine. Are you as upset about that as you are about a hypothetical Kamala Harris administration? Oh, boy. Unfucking believable, man. Yeah, you're so sure that you're right. Okay, buddy. Cool. Yeah, I'm still waiting for you to condemn what Trump is doing right now. I'm still waiting for you to condemn that Lindsey Graham said we should nuke that whole area. I help people make a living. Cool. Yeah, are you helping the people in Palestine at all with this bullshit? Boy, oh boy, the children who are dying of starvation are really glad that you're fucking dragging Kamala Harris's name through the mud. That's real fucking productive, my guy. Unfucking believable. The transparency, the obviousness of your misdirection campaign to try to get people to focus on Democrats and Kamala Harris instead of what Republicans are doing right now that they're in power is unfucking believable. All right, congratulations, you're out of here, man. I'm not here to fight, guys. Why do I keep on getting fucking dragged into these things, man? I've been in a bad mood lately, guys. I don't know if all my regulars can see here, guy. Dan Blackbird says, why are we asked to defend the Israeli policy of a candidate who lost? The guy who won is harmful. That is an excellent point, Dan Blackbird. I would love to know. I would love to know the answer there. ABCXY says, what about our children? Don't they come first? Is there an issue that you're talking about specifically, ABC? Because how are we not putting our children first in what regards? Molded Bread says, I'm honestly sad the Republicans haven't done more, to be honest, so you're not wrong. What do you mean by that, Molded Bread? What do you mean that you're sad that the Republicans haven't done more? Let's see here. Dan Blackbird says, what does I help people make a living mean? That could be anything. That could be a madam. Yeah, well, that person's not here anymore because I have figured out that they're 100% full of shit. Hector says, you think they would release the Epstein files? So the Trump administration is currently in full control of all of the information surrounding Epstein. And they are delaying. And they are having secret meetings with Ghislaine Maxwell to try to get her to doctor her testimony to either to both exclude Donald Trump and also highlight people like Bill Clinton and Bill Gates and, whoever on the left or any enemy that Trump has that he wants to throw under the bus. So yeah, they will 100%, release the documents once they have doctored them. And they will 100% release testimony from Ghislaine Maxwell once they have coerced her with a pardon to leave Trump's name out of it and say, oh no, it was literally just the Clintons. That's all it was, All right. Always Sad but Truthful says, you sound blue. I like you. I am 100% a Democrat, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. Right. Chillin' Jazz says they need to hurry up and release the list. Chillin' Jazz, I got bad news for you guys. The people who are in charge of it, they're going to delay as long as they fucking want. and they will release the documents once they have doctored them. Hector says, of course they have to doctor them because Trump is in them, otherwise it will be released. Agree with that. All right, Molded Bread says, like they're doing very great things, but I was hoping the laws they're passing would pass faster. Molded Bread, do you really think the Trump administration is doing very great things? Like, can you tell me like one great thing that you think they're doing? Because it's a real bummer that you think that, just because of how wildly inaccurate it is. Trump for the People says no tax on tips. That's crumbs. Trump for the People. It is crumbs. They have cut funding for government agencies that poor people and working class people actually need, and they're giving them 5 cents back while they're giving billionaires fucking more billions of dollars in tax cuts. You know, it's a bullshit policy to trick people who did not get a college education. Both sides of the aisle are on the list. LOL. Even foreign leaders, high influence group. Whatever your name is, because you don't have a name next to your avatar. I don't care if Democrats go down, you know. But Trump is on there. But they're going to doctor the list to take him off of there. Ricky Bobby says, "Why G Maxwell getting a platform and not the victims, in your opinion?" I mean, there's a bunch of reasons. I think number one, Maxwell is corruptible. You know, the Trump administration can pardon her. She wants a pardon, so she is going to be the person to get the spotlight so that she can get out there, and she's an easily influenced person. As far as like the victims, there are certain victims out there who are speaking about what happened, but you know, people have a tendency to not believe women, and when they go out there, they start getting death threats and shit like that. So it's dangerous for women to go out there and talk about this stuff. You know, Matthew H says, "Would you still support Bill Clinton if he didn't rape children?" I feel like the way that you are phrasing that, Matthew H, is that I support him because he did it. Bill Clinton did a lot of good things, but you know, there's a ton of evidence linking him to Epstein, and so I don't give a shit about Bill Clinton. Fucking send that dude to jail. I don't give a shit. Matthew H says, "Yeah, that's what I'm saying." Well, then I don't think you're hearing good faith. Flamingo Mo says, "If no tax on tips is so great, why does it expire in 3 years and the tax cut for billionaires doesn't?" That's an excellent question, Flamingo Mo. Alrighty, Molded Bread says, "Even if the list does come out, I highly doubt any of these higher ups will see jail, sadly. Potentially." T Main says, "Can you please fast forward time?" I cannot, unfortunately. But if you do the work, T Main, then maybe we can get out of this instead of just fucking languishing. You know what I mean? Let's see here. I want a complete cleanse of our standing government with term limits instated. That's how the people win. I like term limits. I'm not against that. But you know who's against that is the Republican Party. So if you want that, you should vote for Democrats. Alrighty, Molded Bread says, "You can say crumbs, but most people that live on tips are lower income." Molded Bread, I was a waiter for 12 years, so you're not going to meet anybody with more bona fides to talk about this issue than me. And I can tell you without a fucking, with zero hesitancy, that working class people that survive on tips, are getting fucked so hard by Trump and Republicans right now, by the quote unquote big beautiful bill, that the no tax on tips is not going to fucking cut it, man. They're being shot in the chest and given a fucking Band-Aid and Neosporin. It is fucking bullshit. It is cover. It is not real, my guy. Chillin' Jazz says, "Do you think Bill Clinton will be pardoned?" I do not think Bill Clinton will be pardoned. All right, Stoner Punk says, "The whole world was better off 6 months ago." Completely agree with that. User Bunch of Numbers says, "Can you not just make every day an anti-Trump thing? Too many of them already." I mean, I would love to, but Trump keeps on doing things to shit on people that I care about, and so, you know, he's making the world worse. He is empowering the billionaire class. He is empowering our enemies. He just canceled sanctions on the fucking military junta in Myanmar because they told him that he looked cool or whatever, you know. Yeah, man, just tell him once he stops fucking ruining the world, I'll stop talking about how he's ruining the world. John Franken says, "No tax on tips empowers the rich." Wow, John Franken, are you here in bad faith? Are you completely full of shit? The big beautiful bill cuts taxes for the billionaire class, and it cuts funding for programs that the working class and poor need. The amount of money that is being taken from the 99% is so much larger than they are getting back by no tax on tips. It is a it's a slap in the face to the working class. It's not real. It's bullshit. Oh, right. User bunch of numbers says that's pretty lame. The billionaire class is already in charge. Nothing has changed with Trump. That is inaccurate. User a whole bunch of numbers. The billionaire class has been on a decades-long project to dismantle the government, and every time Republicans are in charge of whatever lever of power, they do more to dismantle the government than they did before. So the Biden administration, Democratic administrations, they empower the government, they try to fix the government, they try to have the government do great things, and then Republicans come in and they set a bunch of fires and they tear everything down. So to say that billionaires are already in charge, it's like, yeah, you're telling people to give up, to stop trying to hold billionaires accountable, like the game is over. You know who fucking loves to hear that is the fucking billionaire class. Yeah, just fucking lay down and take it is what you're saying. Let's see here. John Franken says business owners are not the rich. Many business owners are, John Franken. Trump for the People says, and Democrats expand the government. Expanding the government, like forcing women to not be able to get abortions and shit like that. John Franken says billionaires will never lose. Yeah, you guys have really caught me in a fighty mood today, so I'm fucking at it. I'm done. I'm done arguing with you guys. Mr. Lewis says, should we get rid of the Electoral College? Abso-fucking-lutely. Everybody's vote should count equally. If you're a Republican in California, if you're a Democrat in Arkansas, right now your vote is being thrown in the fucking garbage. So I think that 100% people's votes should be counted, so let's get rid of the Electoral College. Mobley says states decide on abortion. Yeah, and women are dead because of that. Is that a better system, Mobley? Adam says Democrat versus Republican is statist versus statist. That is inaccurate, Adam, and you are giving cover for the worst politicians when you say shit like that. If a girl is going on a date with John Wayne Gacy and you say, all guys are terrible, you're basically saying, yeah, no man is better than John Wayne Gacy. So Donald Trump is out there doing the most corrupt, illegal, and evil shit in the world. And by saying Republicans and Democrats are the same, status versus status, you're basically saying even the good politicians are as bad as Donald Trump. You're giving him cover to do the awful things that he's doing. Always sad but truthful says a fetus is a parasite dependent on the host for survival. Pro-choice. I mean, an argument could be made. Always sad but truthful. Chill and Jazz says I thought no tax on tips was good for gig workers. Samurai Destroyer, how's it going? Good to see you again. Chill and Jazz. It's like this much good, but the same bill that passed that did that much damage to the working class. So it's again, the Trump administration is chopping off your arm and giving you a Band-Aid and Neosporin to fix it with, Adam said, good politicians don't exist. Many good politicians exist, Adam. I would encourage you not to be so cynical because your cynicism helps the evil people do all the evil shit. User a bunch of numbers says, you've had too much leftist Kool-Aids. You don't have a name. You don't have a picture. Fucking Russian bot. Get the fuck out of here, man. Always Sad but Truthful says, love you all, have to go, gave you a follow. Thank you, Always Sad. Appreciate you being here. Adam says, all politicians use the government's monopoly on violence to repress liberty. Adam, I'm done with your cynicism. You're out of here also. Zero patience today, guys. Let's see here. Samurai Destroyer says, I do think he is genuine with his faith as a Christian. James Tallarico. I don't know. That name sounds familiar, James, but I'm not sure who that is. Alrighty. Let's see here. User a bunch of numbers says, is Trump putting Americans first? No. He's putting himself first and his billionaire buddies first. Diego Vargas says Texas congressman is James Tallarico. Oh, okay. What did he do? Don X says, did you receive your programming in California or New York? I received it last night from your mom. Alrighty. Spicier than normal today, guys. Everybody, sorry about that. Let's see here. Okay. I wish you could stream the other chat on the screen. Yeah, Chill and Jazz. I read all the comments that you need to see, Chill and Jazz, Diego Vargas says, if I could afford California, I would move there in a heartbeat, but I'm stuck in Texas. Yeah, I mean, that's the problem with places that are super popular. It's the problem with, Yeah, I got a lot of thoughts about that, but, I'm just fighting today instead. Yes, Dijon says, Dems have nobody. Trump doing more in 6 months than any Democrat since Kennedy. I mean, he's doing more to destroy America and the world. Yes, Dijon. But You know, if you're looking for good things, I would point you to the Obama and Biden administrations because they're the ones that actually did things to help America and human beings. Chill and Jazz says, want to do Shabbat this week? No, thank you. I'm not very religious. Alrighty, let's see here. This person says, Bloods are Crips. I don't believe in violence. I don't believe in gangs. DEI says, hi, says, thank previous gens for the right to abortion, or I might have given birth to another angry feller. Alrighty, let's see here. Yes, John says, you Trump haters being hateful, Biden did nothing. All right, congratulations. You're out of here. Yeah, patience at a fucking... all right, Trump for the people. You're out of here also. Yeah. All right, everybody. So this is not what I normally do on the live stream, guys. I don't know. I've just been in a mood the past weeks. Booby says, when have Democrats been right in the past 6 months? Y'all just jump topics when proven wrong. I mean, they've been right a lot of times, Booby. And why the past 6 months? Like, are you talking about specifically during the Trump administration? You know, the big beautiful bill is a massive transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich. The Democrats said that, and that is accurate. It is going to fuck over a lot of people. The electricity costs are going to go up. Rural hospitals are already closing. Walmart has raised their prices because of Trump's stupid fucking tariff war. There are so many things that Democrats have been right about. What are you talking about? Alrighty. Mobley says, but you think leftist riots are fine. When did I say that, Mobley? Birdman says, what did Biden do that was good for us? He lowered medication costs. He supported the union. He was breaking up monopolies. The largest investment in green energy in our nation's history. Just, you know, to name a couple of things. Mobley says, liar. Well, you can have a hard time saying anything while I'm fucking blocking you. But tell your mom I said hi. All right. Tristan Powell says, what rural hospitals are closing? I live in Mississippi. Ain't shit closing here. Tristan Powell, I got to tell you, man, you are really fucking testing my patience because there is nothing more than I want to do than go, oh, well, if you haven't seen it, then I guess it doesn't fucking exist. Everybody go home. Tristan knows everything that's going on in the world, my guy. Boy, oh boy, are you really testing my patience today, Tristan? Do you understand that just because you haven't seen a rural hospital closing doesn't mean that no rural hospitals have closing? Please tell me that you understand that, Tristan Powell. It's important to me that you understand that that is accurate, right? But you said rural areas, and I live in one of the poorest states. Okay, but again, tell me that you understand how big America is, how many other places there are in America besides where you live, and the concept that just because you haven't seen it happen doesn't mean that it's not happening. Please tell me you understand that. Please comment and tell me that you understand that that's really a thing. TYSCH says the point is you haven't seen it either. I've seen the reporting on it. Let's see here. Rural hospitals closing. All right. Saving Rural Hospitals says the crisis in rural healthcare. Nearly 200 rural hospitals have closed. All right. 700, 1/3, blah, blah, blah. Hundreds of rural hospitals are at risk of closing, says CBS News, May 20th, 2025. So yeah, a quick Google will prove all of this stuff, you know? Okay, Madhu May says Trump 2024, Advance 28. That's an example of something that gets you blocked. Can somebody say something to get me back to where I used to be? You remember how I used to be cool? You know, you remember how I used to just engage with people even when they were obviously trolling me, and now I just am so fucking angry these days. Oh boy, Chillin' Jazz says I gotta go, but hope you keep doing the show on Twitch. I will, Chillin' Jazz. Thank you for being here. Samurai Destroyer says, so now about Trump not really releasing the files, why didn't Biden release it during his time as president if that were to hurt Trump's chances of being president? Excellent question, Samurai Destroyer. So would you, you know, Samurai Destroyer, you're regular. I'm going to give you the most nuanced answer to this question that I can possibly just do off the top of my head. So fucking buckle up, Samurai Destroyer. Shit's about to get real. Okay. According to Representative Ro Khanna, the Democrats made pushes to release the Epstein information in 2019, in 2020, and in 2024. But doing this the legal way is a long process. Additionally, the Biden administration was not in charge of what the FBI could and could not release, because there is supposed to be separation between the executive branch and the judiciary. What Trump is currently doing with trying to tell the DOJ, investigate that person, arrest that person, indict that person, release this information, that is wildly unethical, wildly unconstitutional. It should be more than a norm. It's been more of a norm, for a while. But yeah, the president is supposed to be separate from that whole fucking thing. So yeah, so Biden was not going to tell the DOJ to release that information because he believed in that separation. He believed in the sacredity of that separation. Additionally, the person who was in charge of all those files was named Christopher Wray. He was a Republican who was appointed by Trump during his first administration. So if you want to know why the Donald Trump appointed Republican Christopher Wray did not release the Epstein list, then you will have to ask Republican Christopher Wray. All right, Shirley says Trump is the best president ever. That is an example of the kind of comment that gets you blocked. I don't care if you have different opinions than me, but actually ask a question, be part of the conversation. It's the Rocketeer. Whoa! It's the Rocketeer. Hopping platforms. Aren't you normally over on fucking Twitch, my guy? What's going on? What are you doing, my guy? All right. Best hot dog toppings and thoughts on the South Park season 27 premiere. I like mustard on my hot dogs, and I don't love the South Park guys. I've never really enjoyed their type of centrism, where they think that whatever the majority is doing is wrong, regardless of if what the majority is doing is right. But credit where credit is due. I'm glad they're standing up against Trump. Anybody who stands up against Trump gives me, I give him at least, like 4 points or whatever. The Gulch says Trump is the best. You can't block us all. I 100% can. Spooby says, according to y'all, presidents have nothing to do with private companies. According to y'all, presidents have nothing to do with private companies. Yes, Spooby, that is accurate. That presidents are supposed to have nothing to do with private companies because we're trying to avoid the chance that they would be influenced by private companies. We made Jimmy Carter sell his peanut farm because we didn't want there to be any conflicts of interest. And Donald Trump is out there with a fucking crypto coin, selling fucking shoes and perfume and accepting $400 million planes from the Qataris. The dude is all corruption and bias and grift. That's not the way it's supposed to be, Spooby. Spooby says, so why is Walmart Trump's fault? Spooby, I don't think you're here in good faith because you're asking all these questions that you know the answer to. You're being obsequious and obtuse on purpose. Walmart is Trump's fault because Trump started a trade war, America versus the entire world. And everybody was saying that was going to raise prices because it would increase the cost of companies being able to bring in goods from overseas. And most of our stuff is made in China and shit like that. And so it was literally directly Trump raising prices by doing these tariffs. Alrighty. Spooby. But yeah, I just want you to know, I just want to be on the record here, Spooby. I got your number, man. I know what you're doing here. I'm not going to boot you because you keep on asking questions, and that's my rule. Is so long as you're asking questions, I don't boot you. But I know what's going on here, my man. We have paid about $60 per family, says Authentically Her. Let's see here. Anon Guardian says, when is Trump's big, beautiful obituary? The thing is, shitty people they tend to live a really long time. I don't know, maybe fucking Satan powers their souls or some shit like that. I don't know, man. Ian says, I'm a grad student that studies Christian nationalism. What are your thoughts on it? It is a tool by the billionaire class and the powerful to separate the 99% so that we do not rise up against them. It is a distraction tactic. It is creating others, whereas you're a good Christian. Guess what? Only Republicans are good Christians. Only Republican Christians are real Americans. Everybody else is wrong. You are right. You are moral. You are true. And so you should attack everybody who does not believe in what you believe. And if you give us power, then we will force everybody to believe what you believe. I believe in the doctrine of the separation of church versus state. So yeah, Christian nationalism, fucking thumbs down on that, my guy. Sam Registrar says, why do you think more Christians support Republicans more than Democrats? Not sure if you already answered this. Because of propaganda and misinformation. David says there's nothing to do with Christianity. It's a way to leverage religion to maintain power. That is accurate. White privilege says if I dress up in a sombrero and talk with a Hispanic accent, can I change my ethnicity? No. Diego Vargas says, what can we do with regards to the housing crisis? Kids are fed. They will have no buying power. Diego Vargas, you're going to hate my answer, but we just have to do the work. We have to elect better politicians. We have to be involved. We have to boycott. We have to strike. We have to demand the kind of legislation that would actually bring the cost of housing down. And that's not going to happen with Republicans in power. We're just too busy fighting all the shitty things that they're doing to actually try to solve any of these fucking problems, Alrighty. Authentically Her says the rich are moving Dem. The poor are moving right. The rich are not moving Dem. The rich are always going to support the Republican Party because the Republican Party is the party that cuts their taxes, cuts regulations for the businesses, creates loopholes for them, subsidizes their wildly profitable companies. So yeah, the rich are never going to the left. Women were made to fuck says being rich is the best. I do not care for your screen name, my guy. All right. Kung Dan says, with 9/11 stage, no. Authentically Her says, out-of-pocket expense for healthcare is going up 75%. I believe that. BT says, thoughts on the Epstein files. I think it is obvious that Trump is trying to hide incriminating evidence, evidence that incriminates him in the Epstein files. That is the reason why he is currently bribing Maxwell with a pardon, and his private lawyer is having negotiations with her right now to try to convince her, to throw Democrats under the bus and leave Trump's name out of it, shit like that. Let's see here. Diego Vargas is cutting taxes to not stimulate the economy. Rich people don't spend the money they get. That is accurate. Alrighty. Badger75 says, have you seen the trade agreement with Canada and Mexico? I have not. John Rob Riv says, on trans right, why is the argument always seen from a man to woman transition and never vice versa? The red meat that the right wing uses to rile up their base is the idea of a man transitioning into a woman and then, tricking a guy into having sex with them or playing in a sport and fucking dominating all the naturally born women and shit like that. It is. There's no narrative around a woman transitioning into a man that the right-wing politicians and the right-wing talking heads can use to terrify their base into continuing to support them. Stuart says 9/11 was definitely an inside job. You bore me, Stuart. See you later. Mello says Harris actually won with white voters making over 100K. I don't know if that's accurate, Mello, but I don't really consider people making over 100K to be rich. If that's the argument that you were making. I'm talking about the billionaires and all those ding dongs. I'm watching you. Says Jimmy Carter built homes for humanity. Republicans repossessed them and sold them to Fannie Mae. That is accurate. Get Her Done says, you Democrats have nothing as usual. Keep losing. That's not accurate at all. That's also not a question. So you're out of here. Alrighty. All right. Woo-wee. Brandon Anon says, what do you make of the Rockland County lawsuit? I think it's interesting. It is the most... it is the evidence that has convinced me most that there were potentially votes changed in the 2024 election. I don't think we do anybody any good by sort of like already declaring victory, regardless of what discovery, shows us. We need to deal with the fact that it's potential, that it potentially happened. And that is not going to change the outcome of the last election, but it can help us to safeguard elections going forward. So get on the phone and call your representatives and tell them that you want to make sure that this shit doesn't happen going forward, Let's see here. Have you heard of the PDF files Republican ring in Texas? You'll have to be more specific. I'm reading news stories about the fucking, right-wing people, not necessarily the voters, but the politicians being involved in, child porn and shit like that, Sphinx Egyptian says, Jared, no one's talking about the federal land grabs and policies to get protected lands. Sphinx Egyptian. I don't know what you're talking about specifically. Are you talking about, the government stealing land to build Trump's stupid border wall or shit like that, or what? Are you talking about native waiver rights? Yeah, I'm not really sure what that issue is, Sphinx Egyptian. Brandon announces, my representative is Nick Langworthy. Met him, human garbage, next idea. How much political pressure have you put on him? How many times have you called his office? How many times have you gone to his office? How much work are you doing to get him unelected, Brandon? Because if he's in your district, then he needs your vote. You and your neighbors and the people that you know that live in that district, there is work that you can do. Like, you can vote that guy out of office. It is not impossible. I don't know where you live, but regardless of how red your district is, you can get that guy out. You can either primary him with a better Republican, or you can find a Democrat to run in that race and support them instead. Ready. Sounds like you want me to run against him, LOL. Yeah, why don't you do it, my guy? If there's nobody else, why not? There's a group called Run for Something that helps people run for office. If you are a progressive candidate who's under 40 and is running for state or local office, they will support you and they will help you. But if you want to run for a federal seat, or if you're over 40, they still have information that you can use to make your campaigning easier, I'm all watching you, says Oklahoma Superintendent 60 corn video. Do you think it was his grandma? I don't know anything about that story, but, it tracks, I would say. Turn the World says, Jared, how you doing today? I'm doing okay, but I am feeling real spicy. I've been real spicy lately, and I don't know what the deal is. Alrighty. All right, Samurai Destroyer says, so why would a Christian support a Democratic Party if there are things that the Democrats support that Christians don't agree with, like abortion, gay marriage, and others? Samurai Destroyer, I think that for a long time, the idea of what a Christian is has been manipulated and mutated to where it mirrors almost nothing of Christ's teachings. I believe the Jesuits are probably the closest thing that we have to, a Christianity that actually mirrors Christ's teaching. But you have like the Protestant work ethic, the mega churches who believe that if you're a billionaire, it means that God has blessed you. Whereas, in the Bible, it says a rich man, a camel has a better chance of going through the eye of a needle than a rich man's chance of going to heaven, So, yeah, there are all these extremely powerful religious sects in America that have convinced people that gay marriage is evil and abortion is evil and others is evil, as you say in your examples. But that doesn't mean that they are Christian. That doesn't mean that they are, being Christ-like. It just means that this is a bastardized group organization that is preaching misinformation to their followers in order to accumulate more money and power for themselves and their buddies, Alrighty. Mello says the Bible literally says don't hate foreigners. Yeah, I completely agree with that. David says saying Christians don't support gay marriage is an outdated stereotype. I mean, many Christian sects do not support gay marriage still. Alrighty. Sphinx Egyptian says Nevada News says Trumps are trying to free up lands for drilling there. That tracks. I've read all sorts of reports about the Trump administration trying to sell public lands to private interests so that they can make a bunch of money and log and mine and drill for oil and shit like that. It's a fucking nightmare. Like, that land belongs to us. In addition to being terrible for the environment, that's ours. And the Trump administration is just going to sell it to fucking ExxonMobil or some shit like that, so more oil executives can buy more lobster and more private jets and more fucking mega yachts. Like, it's disgusting, man. It's barbaric. All right, Turning World says, I casually got banned from Social Democrat Twitch chats. How'd you do that, Turning Worlds? Are you about to get banned from mine also for doing that same shit? All right, Period says, do you think the Trump presidency will last the 4 full years? I don't know. So the only reason why Trump would not last is if he dies. It doesn't matter what Epstein shit comes out about him. He has the control of the base still. He will continue to have control of the base. That's the way that, cults work. Now, I think it's also important to mention that he's going to try to stay in office until he dies, regardless of if it means running for a third term or declaring martial law and canceling all elections. Like, that is his goal, and we should plan on that being the case. Now, I'm not going to say, hey, Tyro, what's up? You're never late. You always arrive exactly when you're supposed to be. Let's see here. But now, here's the thing. I don't really, I don't make predictions. I try not to make predictions. The one prediction that I am confident of is that Trump is going to try to stay in office past his 4-year term. But, I have been surprised by things politically in the past. If this Epstein shit really ends up being the end of Trump, I will applaud. But I have read too many op-eds, declaring the end of Trumpism over the past 10 years, and it just hasn't happened. So, I'm not holding my breath. I am not, what do you call it? I'm not holding my breath. Let's see here. I am a post-left anarchist, so hopefully not. Turning Worlds, I believe that anarchism hurts marginalized communities. How do you feel about that? Jago Vargas says, even if Trump goes down, Trumpism is already here. I think that Trumpism loses a lot of its steam without Trump. Alrighty, let's see here. Period says, and he might resign. He will never resign. Period. That is a prediction that I am going to make confidently. He will maybe forced out by a coalition of like J.D. Vance and Peter Thiel and shit like that. Stephen Miller will throw that dude under the bus any chance that he gets. But so long as he has the power of the base, they are helpless against Donald Trump. Social Hazard says, we've already known association with Epstein since his first campaign. They still voted for him. Yeah, but it's kind of in the frontal lobe a little bit more than it used to be, Social Hazard. So, I'm open to the possibility, even though I don't really believe that's going to happen, Ready. Lithuania guy says, Russian drone flew into an EU country today in Lithuania. We got notifications in our phones to get safe. That's fucking terrifying. I didn't think that was going to happen. Not until, because I don't think that Russia has the juice to fight more than one war at a time. Yeah, that has to be a mistake on Russia's part. Like, I would be extremely surprised if Russia was escalating tensions with other countries in addition to having their ongoing war in Ukraine right now. Let's see here. Social Hazard says, few cults survive long without their cult leader. They'll fracture after he croaks. I 100% agree with that, Social Hazard. Alrighty, Lindsay. Oh, I'm echoing, says Lindsay. Are you on multiple platforms, Lindsay? Let's see here. Are you watching on Twitch also? Turning World says, why do you think anarchism hurts marginalized communities? So there is always going to be a human desire for some sort of control, and powerful people will form sorts of, like local militias and stuff like that. Without, the anarchist viewpoint is, kind of like libertarianism extreme, if I understand it correctly, where they don't believe in having any kind of government, that people should just like exist, and vibe and chill together. But, without any sort of like rules-based order or government to enforce those rules, then powerful people and liars and con men will run amok, and the people that get hurt by that will be people who are just trying to live their fucking lives. And if you're a marginalized group of people, then it will be really easy for a majority to otherize you and say that all of the problems that exist here are because of them. Ready. Sphinx Egyptian says, Jared, why has the potential Paramount Skylance merger deal have so much politics behind it? Because Trump is doing something that presidents are not supposed to do by by using the threat of the government power against corporations. So all these corporations want to be doing these mergers to monopolize and become even more rich and powerful. And it is up to the government to okay those deals, because we have these antitrust laws that say that certain monopolies are illegal while other ones are fine, I guess. And so, in so much as these media companies can potentially put out information that Trump doesn't like, either, opinion, commentary, jokes, or just factual reporting saying that Trump and his administration are doing awful things, then he wants to stop that. He wants to have the kind of authoritarian control over the information that you see in, fucking dictatorships and in Russia and shit like that. And until he can get that, then he will use the power of the presidency to either punish these institutions with lawsuits or keep them from doing these wildly profitable mergers that they want to do, you know? Alrighty, Turning Worlds. So you're just explaining modern day politics. I mean, but there's worse Turning Worlds. Things can get worse, and I believe that anarchism would be taking all of the things that are bad right now, getting rid of all of the good, and just increasing all of the bad. You know. But how am I wrong in that assessment, Turning Worlds? Let me know. Lithuania guy says, "Are you a leftist?" Yes, I am, but I don't know if you mean like a leftist versus a liberal or a liberal versus a progressive or whatever. I'm on the left politically, a Democrat, progressive, whatever word you want to use. Get a load of this guy. Says, thoughts on Trump. He's a real piece of shit. Hugonaut says, Democrats on MSM. That's not a question. Jacob Vargas says, with gerrymandering as crazy as it is it even possible to get a supermajority in the left? 100%, Jacob Vargas. Every one of these elections is winnable if people just do the work. There are more people who don't vote than people who vote. Those are gettable voters. Those are convincible people. Alrighty, Blondie Johnson says, explain the Great Replacement theory and how it affects marginalized communities. So yeah, there's Great Replacement theory is basically that white people, powerful right Republicans, excuse me, a bunch of racists are spreading this conspiracy theory that there is an agenda, a conspiracy that people are trying to breed brown people with white people to replace them, so that there's only brown people, and brown people are going to take your jobs, and they're going to have sex with your women, and then there's not going to be any white people anymore. And so we should fight immigration because of that in order to preserve white people and white culture and shit like that. And you know, it convinces poor white people that brown people are their problem as opposed to billionaires. That's the short version. Get a load of this guy. Says, what the hell? I don't know what you mean by what the hell. All right, Turning Worlds, I see you over there. I'll get to that in just a second. I'm brown, and I don't think we're doing any breeding plan. I mean, get a load of this guy. I think that's because nobody is, you know? Brandon Anon says, so you think votes may have been changed last election, but voting is still the answer? Yes, Brandon Anon, for a couple of reasons. Number one is that we are still in control of our voting mechanisms. So if votes were changed in 24, we can petition and bother and use political pressure to make sure that those voting systems are changed going forward so that they are not changed. We also know that the billionaire class and Republicans don't have full capture of our voting systems because Democrats have won a bunch of special elections since 24. So yeah, is it going to be hard? Absolutely. Is there work to do? Absolutely. But the game is not over. The rich want you to think it's over. They want you to be cynical and just give up. So don't give them that gift. They already have enough. They have enough. They got fucking caviar and lobster 3 fucking meals a day. They got mega mansions and mega yachts and mega private jets. Don't give them your hopelessness as well. Get a load of this guy. It says, do you think America is better with diversity? Because some people think it's better as a white country. I think it's obvious that America is better with diversity. Get a load of this guy. And, you know, I think that the idea that America is better as a white nation is a tool that the rich and powerful use to get white people onto their side. You know, it's the meme of a rich person hoarding all the cookies and pointing at a white person with 2 cookies and an immigrant with 0 cookies and say, look out, that immigrant's coming after your cookie, my guy. Sphinx Egyptian says, will Israel ever vote out Netanyahu? He's been a very bad man and it would be nice if he was gone. I mean, they did once. I don't know how he got back in. I thought he was done for good. But, you know, these guys, they have the fucking tenacity of cockroaches, you know, him and Netanyahu and Trump and their fucking ilk. Flamingo Mo says, why did Trump cheat at golf in Scotland? Because he's a cheater. He cheats on everything. He cheats on his wives. He cheats in elections. He cheats at golf. He's a fucking liar. He cheats in business. Brandon Anon says, it's not hopeless. I think our conversation should be French 1789 style, then voting at this point. I don't condone violence of any kind, Brandon Anon. So, yes, let's do all the things. Let's boycott and protest and strike and, you know, fund mutual aid societies and put political pressure on elected representatives and also vote in addition to that. You know, like voting is one of the things that we do. I argue that it's the most important thing that we do, but you know, especially when we have authoritarian regimes like the Trump administration, we have to do all the things. Fog War Productions, great to see you again. I don't like white because white Americans themselves are insanely diverse. I agree with that. You know, it's the people that are worried about replacement theory are the same people that were being racist against the Irish and the Italians in like the early 1900s. You know, they just moved the goalposts. You know, and as a Jewish person, I know that I am next. I know that it is right. I am right there, man. It is going to be brown people, and then me, and then we're going to get to the Irish and the Italians again eventually. Abdul Kaderi says, why rich Democrats don't support Trump's tax bill even is beneficial. Rich Democrats, no, so a couple of things. There's the moral perspective on it. Like, even if it makes your life better, if it hurts everybody in your neighborhood, then, you know, maybe you are the kind of moral and Christian person and Christ-like person that thinks that that is bad. You know, like, I feel terrible even if I am rich and my friends are poor. You know, like, I'm just like, that sucks. You know, there's also a you know, there's a substantive logistical argument for how, you know, a rich person getting their taxes cut even more is worse for them still, you know, because the more desperate you create the 99%, the more you are incentivizing things like violence and crime and homelessness. And, you know, maybe you can afford the kind of private security to potentially protect you from that, but maybe you can't. You know, maybe you don't want to drive down the street and see fucking tent cities everywhere and have to take a fucking armored guard just to go to fucking Whole Foods, you know? Yeah, that shit sucks, you know? All right, let's get over to these Twitch comments really quickly. Minren says, do you think that democracy is an effective system of government? I mean, for the people, by the people, seems to be the best one that we have here, you know? All right. Turning World says, the idea that anarchism is just libertarianism taken to the extreme is a common misconception. Anarchism is about abolishing all hierarchies, economic, social, political, while libertarianism is as a whole, is about protecting private property and capitalism, which anarchism is staunchly against. From my opinion, liberals and often many Democrats confuse anarchism with right-wing libertarianism because they often assume anarchy equals chaos, anti-government, right-wing. Anarchists are organizers, not records. They build mutual aid networks, food distribution, co-ops, housing collectives, and prison abolition campaigns. Defund everything except for private property, private profits. Meanwhile, libertarians want to defund everything except private profits. You know, Turning Worlds, that is the first time that I have heard that definition of anarchism, and I think it sounds pretty on point to me. I You know, there's a danger where we talk about the semantics of these political movements, where if not everybody agrees on what the words mean, it can be really difficult to operate in those spaces. So maybe you need a different word, you know, like maybe because nobody is going to believe just when you hear the word anarchism that that's what you mean, you know. But I'm about building mutual aid and food distribution and co-ops and housing collectives and prison abolition campaigns like that. Those are my policies. I call myself a progressive Democrat. Those are my policies. You know, yours are my policies, and I call myself a progressive Democrat. All right, Minren says it may be the best one we have, but do you think that it is effective? It's flawed, but it's definitely effective. You know, it works. It works in you know, certain ways, and it doesn't work in other ways. Minren. All right, Free Throw 3 says, would it be a good idea to declare war on the cartel? I don't think so. Diego Vargas says, are we in a mild depression right now? I read a story comparing buying power. People had more buying power in the 30s. Ooh, that's interesting. I haven't read that. I mean, a depression is a very specific economic definition, which I believe you need to have like a certain, I don't know, I think you have to have like, I think you go like recession and then depression or something. I forget exactly how it works, but yeah, potentially I could see an argument that we are in some sort of a silent depression or a mild depression or something like that. Free Thought 3 says, oh, I already did that one. Trey Johnson says, Joe Biden's daughter said Joe took inappropriate showers with her, but liberals don't care. All right, Trey Johnson, congratulations. That's not a question, so you're out of here. You're out of here. You gotta ask a question. Minren says, if it is effective, then why are there so many problems that you mentioned? Things being effective does not mean that they are flawless, let's see here. Turning World says, fun fact, I was actually a MAGA conservative prior to this. Well, I'm glad that you don't like a MAGA, Turning Worlds. And do you work with progressives, Turning Worlds? Like, are you dogmatic about only working with people that call themselves anarchists? If there's a mutual aid society run by the DSA, for example, do you work with them, or are you staunchly, do you need people to be also post-leftist anarchists in order to coalesce to form a coalition with them? All right, Scott Clowers says the dollar has dropped 11% of its value since Trump's second term. That is accurate. Alrighty, scrolling. Diego Vargas says, when did corporations start engaging in stock buybacks? Didn't FDR ban them? That is a really good question, Diego Vargas. I feel like it's been going on for a while. My gut instinct, if I was going to hazard a guess, I would go Reagan administration, because he did a lot of shit that enabled, private profit over the well-being of the citizens. But yeah, that's just me guessing. Alrighty. Most radical changes that our country has gone through was not established through voting, but violence. I don't know how historically accurate that is, Frankie. Yeah, if we look at the success of the civil rights campaign, for example, the power of the civil rights movement was in showcasing the violence of the people on African Americans trying to have equal rights to white Americans. The suffragette movement, no violence there. Maybe men against women, but the suffragettes were not out there burning buildings to get the right to vote. So yeah, and political scientist Erica Chenoweth says that nonviolent movements are universally more productive and have a better success rate than violent movements. So, Frankie, I disagree. Tim Spahn says, should Obama go to jail? No, there's no real reason why he should, Tim Spahn. Obama is going to jail. Oh, that's a statement. So guess what? You're out of here, buddy. Ponder Parrot says, was it a mistake giving women the vote? No. Valingo Mo says, which past presidents do you think could counteract MAGA-ism? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. You just got to give me some good speaker, like Obama or JFK or some shit like that, Minran says, what in your view makes one-party politics less effective than democracy? One-party politics less effective than democracy. I mean, it depends on what you mean by one-party politics, Minren. Like, are you talking about like authoritarian shit? You talking about dictatorship? You talking about like, yeah, what if it was only the Republican Party? Or are you talking about one-party politics like, there's no Republican Party, only the Democratic Party, but the Democratic Party is, people from the far left and the center left, and there's an issue when we're working through these semantics, meaning non-democratic, e.g., China. The issue is individual rights, where if an individual citizen has an issue with what the government is doing, then they don't have any recourse against it. A democratic system empowers the populace, and authoritarian, they're repressive, and they don't believe in free speech, and I don't want to go to jail for the things that I say, and if a government tank runs over my foot, I think that I should have the rights to sue for compensation and potentially to unelect whatever person was in charge that allowed that to happen. Shit like that. Alrighty. Rich Poor 84 says, would you say there are similarities between Jim Carrey and Ryan Reynolds' styles? They're both funny. Yeah, there are definitely similarities, but Jim Carrey is more of a rubber man, whereas Ryan Reynolds is much more of a straight man. Sean Z says, not really political, more philosophical, but do you think humankind is inherently selfish, destructive? No. And I think that humans are becoming less destructive and violent with every generation. I would encourage you to read a book called Our Better Angels. It is a statistician's look at how much more violent humanity was in the past and how much less violent it is becoming as every year progresses. It's not linear. Progress is never linear, but we are getting there. Jeffrey Shelton says, I am really psyched to have corporations get more money. Sarcasm, Jeffrey? Turning World says, no offense, but I will not work with Democrats, liberals, MLs, social democrats, etc. I also will not work with every anarchist, though. I like to tell people this true freedom is not the fruit of any doctrine or not any achievement of any revolution. It's an ungovernable moment. I think that that's unproductive, Turning Worlds. I think that when you have a united authoritarian front, you need to form coalitions with people that you don't agree with 100%. So if you're starting a mutual aid society, and I call myself a progressive and you call yourself an anarchist, so long as we're doing a mutual aid society, I'm down with the project, So if we are voting out of office every Republican and you're down with that goal, then yeah, man, I'll form a coalition with you. But the rich and the powerful, they benefit by us being divisive amongst ourselves and having various purity tests where unless you did this, then you don't count, and I'm not going to work with you. Fog War Productions says, I just hate that democracy transformed DNC and GOP into the, I don't know how to pronounce those Fog War Productions, but that's not democracy that did that. That's those rich people that did that, I can tell you that history if you like, but yeah, or you just read Dark Money. Rich Poor says, I would agree for the most part, but I do think humankind could be considered selfish in some ways. Oh yeah, absolutely. But there's also, I sometimes I think that the human capacity for greed is something that has been nurtured in order to advance a specific political agenda, where if everybody is out for themselves, then the rich and the powerful win, because then they don't form collective action groups to take down their power, shit like that, All right, Flamingo Mo says, many white men have failed at running for president. Why do some Dems say we can't have a woman again? Flamingo Mo, it's a difficult question. I think that a problem that a lot of Democratic voters have is that they tend to play politic with their vote instead of just voting for who they want to win. What we have seen right now is that Trump he's a toxic candidate. He is selfish and corrupt and racist, and yet he beat Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris. One a white woman, one a woman of color. And Biden beat Donald Trump. Not only did he beat him, because of the Electoral College, the victory was only like 40,000 votes, but the popular vote, 8 million. He won by 8 million votes. So people look at that and they say, is it possible that America is so either consciously or unconsciously sexist and racist that they will vote for Donald Trump or not vote if a woman or a woman of color is the alternative? And so people are worried about that, and I don't know how founded that worry is. I am not, staking a claim in that. I will work my ass off to elect, whatever Democrat is up against whatever Republican, because the Democratic platform is better than the Republican platform. And on the net, Democratic politicians are better than Republican politicians. And I don't play politics with my primary vote. If I like Katie Porter better than Adam Schiff, then I'm going to vote for Katie Porter, even if I'm worried that, America is too sexist to elect a woman, But there are a lot of voters that do that. You know, a lot of voters didn't want to vote for Elizabeth Warren, not because they didn't like her the best, but because they were worried that she wouldn't win in a general election. And same thing with Bernie Sanders. People were worried that having the label of socialist next to the word Democrat for Bernie Sanders was going to be enough to turn off the general population during the general election, you know? And yeah, whether that's right or wrong or not, I don't know. You know, we saw an extremely progressive campaign succeed in 2008 when America was much more hesitant to embrace that kind of campaign. And it came from an African American man. So, you know, we have at least one historical precedent that these campaigns can win. And we don't need to play politics with our primary vote. We can just support the candidates that we like, regardless of how progressive or socialist or not white or not male that they are. But yeah, I don't think that it is an unfounded concern, you know, because the rich and the powerful have been stoking these flames for a long time. You know, an argument could be made that it was just a fear of the LGBTQ community that won George W. Bush his election in 2004. And so, yeah, you know, if you're trying to make the smartest decision with your vote as possible, then there are going to be a lot of people who argue that America is not there yet. They are not ready to elect a Pete Buttigieg or an AOC. I don't know if I believe that, but I think an argument could be made. Woo-wee! Alrighty. Shanzi says, that's sad. We need more women in power. I completely agree with that. Jago Vargas says, did Democrats really lose the South for 100 years, as Lyndon B. Johnson said after signing civil rights? I mean, when did that happen? That happened in like 1970 something, right? If I'm remembering correctly. So yeah, I mean, we got about 40 more years left to see if that's the case. But maybe if people do the work, we can get the South back. You know, maybe if people are motivated and activated, you know, in everywhere in America, the South, the North, the East, the West, there are more people who don't vote than people that vote. So go out there, go out to the South, get those votes, and you know, let's see if we can be successful. Let's see if we can prove Lyndon B. Johnson incorrect there. DC Speaks says, has it been mentioned that Maxwell has protection so nothing happens to her? Has it been mentioned that she has protection? I don't know. I don't know anything about that, DC Speaks. I don't know what kind of security she has. I think that the Trump administration views her as valuable because she is corruptible. You know, they can dangle a pardon in front of her to get a testimony that is beneficial to them. So yeah, I don't think that she's in any danger of, you know, having an accident. All right, yeah. Lindsay Reed says, from the South here, impressed when North Carolina and Georgia go purple. Yeah, you know, it's happened, but you know, the Conservative Party still has a real, you know, a strong grip on those communities. Ahmed Khatib says, how do we as people raise awareness because tons of people don't even know or care to know about news or what's going on? That is an excellent question, Ahmed. Here's my answer to that, Ahmed. We need to do that work because the internet is fucked. It is the Wild West. It has been completely captured by the billionaire class that are just trying to divide and distract us. So this work needs to happen in real life. We need to talk to people that we know, our friends, our neighbor, our coworkers, our family, the people that already know us and love us and trust us. We need to be informing them of what's going on. We need to be taking them out of whatever propaganda rabbit holes they might be living in. We need to make sure that they are registered to vote, that they are prepared to vote, that they are active and engaged in politics, and to get them to join in this work. We got to do it phone tree style, where you tell your friends and they tell their friends and they tell their friends, et cetera, until we span the entire country, because the internet's not going to do it. You know, maybe a couple of things they poke through the internet culture every now and again, like this Epstein shit, but we can't count on it, because I have watched these propaganda narratives poison even smart people that I know. You know, people who follow politics have bought some of these bullshit narratives that are designed to either get people to vote for Republicans or not vote, or just not be as enthusiastic a supporter of the Democratic Party. you know. Alrighty, let's see here. Turning Worlds. Let's see here. Unity just equals a new hierarchy. Unity will always demand compromises, structure, leadership, and shared strategy. I reject this because every structure will begin to reproduce authority through hierarchy roles. Turning Worlds. Yeah, Turning Worlds, I gotta tell you, I view your dogma as unproductive and damaging. And so, I hope that you will not stick to your guns, because I engage with people with that type of philosophy a lot, and they don't do anything. They don't get anything done. You know, they sit in their house and they wait for the revolution to start, and hopefully it's on their block, because they're not gonna drive there, or some shit like that. So yeah, yeah, I just don't think it's productive. I haven't seen it. Yeah, yeah. Alrighty, let's see here. Ahmed, so the thing is, in some states like New York or California or the Northeast, where it's a Democratic state, people are aware, but in other areas, nothing. Yeah, we got to do the work, man. We got to go everywhere. We got to do the work everywhere. Even if you live in California, you got a friend that lives somewhere that's not California. DC Speak says, when Trump's lawyer met with Maxwell, was there a mediator there or somebody to make sure he wasn't blackmailing her? Nope, there was not, DC Speaks, and that's wild. It is bananas that happened. That is not the way that it's supposed to go. Gambino says, hopefully the right stays in power for a few years to fix the problems made by the Dems. That's not a question, Gambino, so you are out of here. All right, everybody. I went way too long today because I needed to calm down, I guess. Hopefully I'll be less fighty tomorrow. Thank you for sticking with me, as I sometimes am not able to live up to my own promise to not do fights and not do debates. But yeah, hopefully you guys will stick with the show and tell your friends how great the show is, and give me lots of likes and shares and follows and all the good stuff to support me in the channel, because I'm trying to spread the gospel of fixing this shit that's going on right now. And, I can only do that when I get more ear holes and more eyeballs on the information. So please do the work, everybody. Go to my Discord and check out, I got a thread posted called The Work. Just go on there and do that. And the more people that do that, the more damage we can keep from happening, and potentially we can get from bad to good, and then from good to better, and then maybe we'll eventually get to great. So yeah, if there were any, I appreciate all the support you guys can give me. If you want to join my Patreon, I got a Patreon you can join. It's on my website, jaredbernstein.com. You can, go buy things from my store on jaredbernstein.com. You can like and subscribe and share and send gifts on TikTok and Twitch and YouTube and all the good shit. If there were any questions that you have that I was not able to get to, my DMs are open. You can email me through my website. You can hit me up on my Discord. This project of mine of trying to fix all this shit, of unelecting every Republican, of electing better Democrats in the primary, people that we're actually excited about voting for, of dismantling the wire in our brain that tells us that politicians have to agree with us 100% or they're fucking corrupt shills or leftist extremists. That doesn't stop when my live stream stops. And so if there's work that needs to be done, if you need to know information about how to get involved, you can always hit me up. I am available, and I respond to messages. So yeah, send me a DM, shoot me an email through my website, or hit me up on my Discord. My regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. My schedule for streaming and also stand-up can be found on my website, jaredbernstein.com. Alrighty, let's see here. Lindsay Reed says, you think Gavin Newsom will be the president? That's not the kind of prediction that I'm going to make, Lindsay. But he's going to try, and it's up to the voters to see if they want to vote for him in the primary. I'm also not trying to talk about 2028. I'm trying to talk about 2026. We got midterm elections coming up, and I think that the Republican Party should be voted out of existence in the 2026 midterm. So hopefully you will join me in that project of replacing every Republican with a better Democrat, because better is better and worse is worse. And Republicans need to pay a political price for all of this shit that is going on, for prices going up, for American citizens being detained, for people who have done zero crimes being deported to concentration camps, either here and abroad. For fucking alligator Auschwitz, Republicans need to pay an electoral price. For tax cuts for billionaires, they need to pay an electoral price. For fucking allowing Trump to have a fucking crypto coin and accept $600 million jets from the fucking Qataris, fucking Republicans need to pay an electoral price. For every rural hospital that is shut down, for every woman that dies from a pregnancy complication, Republicans need to pay an electoral price. So hopefully you will join me in voting them out of existence. Alrighty, everybody. Be good to each other. Be good to yourself. Self-care is part of the work. And I will see you here tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye.